welcome to Kankakee Podcast, where we talk about the people and places of Kankakee County. I'm Jake Lamore, and on this episode, we are continuing our Meet the Mayor series with the current mayor of Manteno, Mayor Tim Nugent. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I have been waiting for this and very excited for it because I'm born and raised in Manteno. So, that is my family's home. And even though I no longer live there, I'm there a lot because my family still lives there. So, and I mean, I'm just in Bradley, so it's not like I'm far. But even though I'm not sleeping there every night, it is still my home. So
that's it's a good place to be from. A lot of your family is still there.
Yes, exactly. And so I'm just excited to learn more about you. And I know some things. Like, if I remember correctly, the Nugent family, or I should say your branch of the Nugent family, is originally from, is it Manhattan-ish or a little north of that, right?
Yeah, my dad grew up in the Manhattan, Wilton Center area. My mom actually was raised out west of Manteno, out by Des Elm. When my mom and dad were married, they raised the family on a farm out west of Manteno, about 4 miles west of Manteno.
So is that Des Elm then, right?
Well, it wasn't quite. It was kind of in between Manteno and Des Elm. We were about just about a mile west of Route 45. But that's where myself and all my brothers and sisters, were raised, and that's where we grew up, and spent a lot of growing formative years on the farm out west of Manteno.
You have a big family. You
right?
Have a lot of siblings.
There's 8 of us. There's six boys and 2 girls that were in my immediate family. There's only 3 boys that still remain. But like I say, there was a lot of us, and there's still a lot of us because we've spread our wings.
Yeah, and let's see. So Kevin is one that's still alive.
Yeah, Kevin's my brother. He lives in Manteno. He has a very large family that most of them live in Manteno. And Father Tony is my brother who also lives in Manteno. He's retired now. He was a priest in the Joliet Diocese for decades, and he is retired in Manteno. He still does a lot of services throughout the community. So the 2 of them and myself are the 3 boys that are still around and live in Manteno. I have a sister, Donna Bertrand. She also lives in Manteno. And then I have another sister, Karen Cassidy, who lives down in Georgia in a suburb of Atlanta. Her husband, Chuck, worked with the Roper Corporation, and they grew up in Kankakee, and their family was raised in Kankakee, but Chuck got transferred down south in South Carolina and Georgia, back in the 80s when Roper left the area. So they moved out of the area and went down south, and then their family still remains down there. So, but other than that, most of the Nugents, they lived, and the ones who have passed on, they all lived and died in Manteno.
So this is all kind of taking place in my mind now, or just remembering this. Some things that I've forgotten. I was an altar boy at your mother's funeral, and I remember your brother Tony, Father Tony, giving the homily and just doing an incredible job. And I think, if I remember, that's where I kind of learned that your family's farm that was in Wilton Center in Manhattan got bought up to build the arsenal or something like that, right?
That's correct. Yeah, Tony. Yeah. Unfortunately, Tony's given a lot of homilies at funerals. And you're right. When my mom and dad, when they first were married, they were farming up in the Wilton Center area, and the farm got bought up for the arsenal, and then that's when they moved down to the Manteno area, and that's where they stayed for to raise their family. So yeah, you were listening good that day.
I was.
That's been quite a while ago now.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tony, he does a great job whenever he's called upon to do the homilies for these special events that we have.
Yeah, and I think that's where I kind of learned where the family came from and how you ended up in Manteno. And because there's quite a few families that were in that same kind of situation that were, so the kind of backstory, the arsenal was for That was during World War II, right?
Correct. They bought up property, over in the Wilmington area, and I mean, thousands and thousands of acres that the government still owns today. And they took that land, and the farmers had to be relocated to different spots. So uh, obviously, there was controversial things that were happening even back then, and it dislocated a lot of different families, and changed the lives of a lot of different families because they obviously, you move to a different location, move to a different community, you raised your family there, your kids went to school at a different spot, and most of us all still remain in the area that we grew up.
Yeah. So what was life like for you growing up on the farm then?
Well, it's funny. I talk about this with my kids when they were younger. I mean, it was totally different. I mean, we grew up on a grain farm, and we had animals. We had chickens, and so we had the boys had egg routes. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we delivered eggs to people's houses. Tuesday, we were in Kankakee and Bradley and Bourbonnais, and Thursday we were in Manteno. And so we took care of the chickens that were, out there, and we, had bought the eggs from my dad at a discounted rate, and then we delivered them. And that was how we made money back in the early days, was that, we had egg routes and we sold eggs. We delivered eggs to people's doorstep for 50 cents a dozen, advertised the egg route. I still remember the slogan. It was, the Nugent's good eggs to know. And I remember delivering eggs on people's doorsteps in the wintertime, and it was snowing and slipping and falling and the eggs breaking all over.
Oh,
And,
man.
and they're pretty much of a mess trying to clean things up. But we kept going back, and that's how we earned our money when we were growing up. And that's when, so we worked on the farm. And so we did a lot of work. I mean, looking back, it was fun. We worked a lot, but at the time, we didn't really know it was work. It was just the way things were.
Did you go through the Manteno school system then?
We went to Our Lady Academy,
Oh,
and
yes.
we all went to the school there at the Catholic school in Manteno that obviously does no longer exist. And then we all went to Bishop McNamara High School, or St. Pat's High School. And my brothers, when they went there, it was St. Pat's. Um,
It was St. Pat's when you went there too, or
when I
was
went
it
there, it was Bishop
it
McNamara.
was Bishop
Right.
McNamara at that time? Okay.
And so we, graduated from there. So yeah, we went to the Catholic schools through the whole time. My mom and dad were, very adamant about that, and we were one of those families that went to church every day during Lent. Every time during Lent, you got up in the morning and took the ride into town and went to mass, and then went uptown and had breakfast at one of the local cafes, and then went to school. And that was just, it was just standard operating procedure. That's just the way you did things. Um,
Did your parents run any other businesses besides the farm? Does that, because I know that that's what the Nugents are known for, is just the amount, not even just yourself, your brothers, and going down from there, just the amount of businesses that
yeah.
you've been involved
No,
in over the
my
years.
dad, he farmed, say, had the grain farm and had this, the separate eggs on the side. But then, that was the only things that he was involved in. You're right. My family has gotten involved in a variety of different businesses, from, kind of across the board, from Tony being a priest to a couple older brothers who were farmers, and then myself and my brother Kevin getting involved in, Kevin obviously has been in the construction business all his life. At first building homes, and I worked with him for a while building homes and apartments, and then eventually he went into the commercial trade and commercial building. And then his sons have taken over that, and his daughter have taken over that company since then, and continues to operate in the area. And like I say, it's a completely different business now than it was years and years ago. Building houses, custom homes for individuals who wanted their own house built, to now they're more commercial. Building, commercial buildings, building roads, parking lots, curbs, that type of thing. So, but again, that's my brother's family that has kind of branched out. He had a big family. He's got 5 kids, and they're all involved in the business.
When did you and your brother kind of start in that business together. Did you guys go to
Yeah,
college or?
well, my brother Kevin was at Northern Illinois University, and he in the summer times he would work for a guy that was building homes in Manteno, a guy named Kenny St. Aubin Builders, and there was a couple different local builders in Manteno that built all the homes, Ken St. Aubin and Clifford Owens, and so Kevin went to work for Ken St. Aubin, and then eventually I started working for him too. And, so we worked for them, in the summertime when we were going to school, when Kevin was in college. And then when I went into college, I'd come home and work for St. Albans in the summertime also. So we kind of, got some knowledge about building the homes. And eventually, Kevin went off and started his own construction company building homes. And I went to work for him for a while. And I worked for him for a couple of years, and we'd build homes during the day for other people, and then we'd build some apartments or duplexes and stuff at night for ourselves because we knew how to do this. We had this trade, we knew what we were doing, and we wanted to do something above and beyond the 8 or 10 hours a day that you worked for somebody else.
Yeah. What do you remember from those days, or just the thing that you think of the most when you think about your days building houses?
Well, the energy, I mean, we could work all day long, have dinner, have lunch, and just keep on going. And you never, it doesn't seem like now you never ran out. You look back, it doesn't think you ever ran out of steam. And work till 8, 9, 10 o'clock or whatever, and go to bed and get up the next day and start all over and do it again and not think anything of it. It's just the way you work, the way it was. I wish I had a third of that energy now, but again, it wasn't really work because we didn't know it was work. We were doing what we wanted to do. We were, making a living. We were trying to get ahead. And it was just, one of those things that you did. Everybody was working. And so it was normal. The Nugents I think, were well known for working hard. I think we're well known for playing hard too. When it's time to work, you work. When it's time to play, you play.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely what the Nugents are known for.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. What did you major in college then? Did it have anything to do with building?
No, not at all. For some reason, and to this day, I don't know why or what it was. I always wanted to be a police officer. And, I just had a lot of respect for the law enforcement and wanted to be a police officer. When I went to college, I got a grant to go to college for a period of time and study law enforcement. And so I did that. And then the grant ran out. And so I quit for a while and came back and went back to work. I went to KCC, after hours and at nighttime. And eventually, got out of the construction business after several years, and I had got the shot to have my dream job and be a police officer. Took a huge cut in pay to do it, but it was something that I really wanted to do. And so I went I had the opportunity. I met a guy who had just gotten elected sheriff of Kankakee County. His name was Larry Hildebrand. I mean, this was back in the 70s. And he gave me the opportunity to be a deputy sheriff in Kankakee County. And I did that for the next 20 years.
I often forget that you were a deputy sheriff. I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, that was, like, say, in the early 70s, a totally different business than what it is today. I was a patrol officer for a period of time, then worked in the detective bureau. I actually ran the detective bureau for a period of time. I had the opportunity to get involved in all kinds of different cases and investigations and doing things that I never dreamed that I would ever be involved in. I mean, those are things that you saw people do on television, being involved in a homicide investigation or some type of, sexual assault investigation or whatever. I got to go different places, work with different agencies throughout the state of Illinois. Got to go to the FBI Academy in Washington, in Quantico, Virginia. Do some other, education throughout the country. Actually got to, transport prisoners. I remember myself and Bernie Thompson, he was a deputy at the time too. Him and I went out to California and brought prisoner home from there. We went to Arizona at the time and brought prisoners home from there. Just things like that I never had dreamed that I'd ever have the opportunity to be able to do. that we were involved in, and I think we're pretty good at it. I was a police chief from 85 to 93. So in
Okay.
1993, I left law enforcement. And Don Green was elected mayor. And at the time, we became very good friends later. But at the time, we're not seeing eye to eye, and he wanted to go a different direction. And so I retired. Like I say, later on, we became, very good friends, after I talked to him after. But I retired and I went into a private business in Manteno.
The lumber company,
Right,
right?
right.
I remember going there as a kid.
My brother and myself had bought a local lumber company. Even when I was the police chief, we invested in a local lumber company. There was a gentleman that had a lumber company in Manteno by the name of Russell Thompson, and Russell was, he wanted to get out of the business. My brother Kevin and I was doing some home building on the side. We were the best customers he had at the time, and so he talked to us about the possibility of buying him out because he wanted to get out of that business. And so we did, because we had this grand idea that if we owned the lumber company, that we'd be able to get material at a better price than what we were buying it, and so it would be a good business.
Did it work out that way?
It did eventually. Just like any other business, there was the first several years were struggle, and the economy wasn't the greatest, and there wasn't a lot being done. But our overhead wasn't all that high either. But in 1993, when I was leaving law enforcement, our business was expanding and it was growing, and there was different construction projects that were going on, and we really needed somebody there full time to kind of watch over the business, and if we wanted to grow it more, to make sure that somebody from the family was there to make that happen. And so I went to work there full time, and that's kind of when Manteno was in a growth pattern, and we started, building and being involved in supplying material for a lot more houses. Got into the business where we were, actually developed some subdivisions and bought farmland and developed some subdivisions.
Which subdivisions? Was it right in South Creek, or was it?
Well, we were involved in a number of them. Francis Smith was developing Park West, and he wanted to get out of that, and so we ended up buying that from him. We developed a subdivision on the west side of I-57 called Westfield that was right along the highway. We got involved with Lester Estates in the beginning phases of that with the Stauffenbergs when they wanted to sell some of the land. We did buy some of the property in South Creek and bought some developed lots and sold them and built houses there. We branched out to Bourbonnais and we bought a subdivision there called Virginia Grove, and another one called Prairie Chase, which is still there now, and has more lots available to sell there. So we were involved. I bought lots in Bordeaux and Briarcliff and a lot of different places, and with the whole idea that we own the lots, we could build the houses and then sell the finished product by supplying the land and then supplying all the building material at the same time.
Now, if I remember correctly, Manteno Lumber started at Walnut and First Street, right?
No, actually, it started at the Farmer's Elevator.
It did start at the Farmer's
Yeah,
Elevator.
when we bought the building, or when we bought the business from Russell Thompson, it was at the Farmer's Elevator building. One of the buildings still exists today. It's a kind of a metal tool shed on the north side of the facility, and they had another spot where they wanted to build a grain bin, and so they were going to tear a portion of our building down, or the building that we were operating in, because we rented from them. And so that's when we moved and bought the building, which is now the pub.
Yeah.
And we moved there, and it used to be Baker Implement years and years ago.
That was where they build wagons.
They sold a International Harvester farm tractors and combines and stuff.
Okay.
And that's where my dad used to buy all his equipment.
Okay.
So we ended up buying it and that building, and we moved Manteno Lumber up there, and that's where it was from up until the late 90s. We operated out of there, and that's really where we grew a lot. Our sales went from, we were hoping if we could double our sales by being in that facility that we'd really be lucky and it would have been a good move. And luckily, that happened a couple times, and we actually eventually outgrew that facility and eventually built a new building out on the west side of I-57, because, like I said, Manteno was in a growth spurt. We were lucky enough to be a part of that. We were involved in the construction business, and a lot of new people were coming to town, building a lot of different homes. We were working with a lot of different builders, not just in Manteno, but throughout the whole county and the whole region. Our trucks were going all over to Indiana and as far south as Watseka and up to the suburbs, and luckily we were going all over. So business was really, it was good, but there was a lot of money flowing through, and if you were able to stop a little bit, you were lucky once in a while.
And you guys sold Manteno lumber in the mid
It was early
2000s?
2005. It was right when I was when the year that I got elected mayor was 2005, and I was actually running for mayor at the time, and we had sold the business, but it hadn't been announced yet. And there was a lot of people when I was running for office the first time that were complaining that I wanted to run for mayor because I wanted to you force everybody to buy all their stuff from us. Well, they didn't know it at the time. The business had already been sold, but we hadn't closed and we hadn't announced it yet.
Mm.
So we, and that all kind of came about, through just word of mouth, and because we were growing and because we were selling a lot. The business really wasn't for sale. We had a gentleman walk in the door one day. He was from Bloomington. His name was Mike Hunman, and he had a number of lumber companies or lumber yards throughout central Illinois. He had one in Bloomington and Champaign and Springfield and Decatur, and he had a number of different facilities. And then he also had a truss plant where he built roof trusses and a door facility where they made doors. And he was wanting to expand his business into the south suburbs of Chicago. And we had this facility up here right along
I was
I-57.
going to say you're in the perfect spot there because you got easy access to
Sure.
57.
It was great it was a great spot for him. And so he walked in the door one day and asked if we'd have any interest in selling it. Well, at the time we didn't, but we said, "Hey, everything's for sale for, if we can come to an agreement."
Yeah.
So we gave him some numbers, and he said, "Thank you very much," and he left, and we didn't hear from him for a while. And about 6 months later, he came back, and we made a deal.
So at that point then, did you know when he walked through your door that one day did you already decide that you wanted to run for mayor at that point?
Yeah,
Or,
yeah.
okay.
Well, at the time, there was a lot of different things that were going. Manteno was growing like crazy, and at the time, that was great for my business. But I think there was a lot of things that were broken in town. The school system couldn't handle the influx, and that was obvious. The sewer system was maxed out. The water system was, we were on an EPA order because our water was, the people were having to boil the water, so that wasn't a good thing. So we had grown too fast, and as much as I liked being able to sell the material, I mean, the town needed a pause, and well, I wanted to be part of that solution. I didn't want to shut the town down, but I also didn't want it to fall apart either.
Well, and the mayor before you, I remember him very well,
Mhm.
Bernie Christensen.
Yep.
He created quite a bit of rumbling in town from what I remember.
Yeah, Bernie. He had a colorful past. He was he had been a former police officer, and he was out of that, and he had some personal problems, and
Yeah, wasn't he going through a divorce at that
yeah,
time, I think?
he had some personal issues, and the town just, like I say, there was a lot of things happening, a lot of people were disgruntled, and I just thought that that I could offer some things that were, maybe some business management skills, where the town could prosper and the community could prosper, everybody could prosper at the same time. but we had to put a pause on the explosive growth that was happening and get a handle on it. Um, at the time when we slowed it down a little bit, I didn't think it was going to last for this long.
Well, that's true. You didn't, right? When it finally did slow down,
Well,
it really slowed
yeah,
it or
well, that's
slowed
just it.
down.
We slowed it down to to try to get the school district. They needed a referendum passed. We tried to get some other things done, and then the plan was to slow it down, get our house in order, make sure everything got fixed, and then have some controlled growth.
Yeah.
Well, and looking back, what happened is we slowed it down, and then the depression or of recession of 2008 hit, and the good old days of building a lot have never come back.
Your early days as mayor, what were some of the big things?
Well, the thing that was really happening a lot was, there was a lot of development going on. We were meeting constantly with different companies that looking at potentially buying land in the Manteno area to expand, and they wanted to. There was all kinds of farm fields that are still farm fields today that were bought and platted out to be able to build more and more and more homes. Uh, but it was at the same time that I got elected mayor, Dawn Russert was appointed the superintendent of schools in Manteno. And they had tried to pass a referendum to expand the schools 3 or 4 times, and it had been defeated big time every time. I mean, and the schools were maxed out. I mean, we could develop more and more homes, but the schools just couldn't handle the load.
Yeah, I remember they had put trailers
Yeah,
at the schools.
they had
They
the
maxed those out.
So so when I first got elected, the schools that were in trouble, the sewer system was maxed out, and the water system was in trouble. So we had 3 big problems to solve right away. The water was the first one because we were under an EPA boil order at the time. And so we investigated a number of different ways to try to solve that. One of them was to potentially build our own water treatment facility because the water we were getting was coming from wells, and it had to be treated, and we didn't have a treatment facility. And that was going to be a huge expense. At the time, it was about a $25 million expense that would have cost the village to build that. Or we could have potentially sold the system to Aqua, in Kankakee, and get water from the Kankakee River. They are already supplying water out at the Diversitech campus, and it would have been a very easy fix to hook up to them and get the treated water. And there was a lot of controversy about that. I mean, we
Yes,
had
there
public
was.
meetings, and there was a lot of people that were very passionate about, well, we should never sell our system, and if we sell to Aqua, they're going to raise our rates, and that's true. They were, and they did. But the problem is that if we would have built our own facility and spent the $25 million, the rates would have had to double or triple too.
Yeah, would there have been any way to get any type of funding for that if you would have went the other route?
No, I mean there was loans to get, but you still got to pay the loans
Well,
back.
yeah.
There was no grants. I mean, we investigated all that stuff. And there was no grants that you were just going to get a freebie. You could get loans, but the loans had to be paid back.
Well, and usually those grants, I know some people don't realize this. I learned this recently is that even with grants, they usually requires the person receiving the grant that they have to put a percentage in too.
Sure, yeah.
So it's usually like, it's not 50-50. Sometimes it's a little, the portions are a little different than that.
Well, and the town was broke. I mean, our water system was broke. I mean, and that was one of the reasons that our system was in trouble, was because the previous boards had kept the water rate so low to appease everybody that they never had enough money in the bank to be able to fix anything or repair anything or upgrade anything. But they were very proud about the low water rates. But low water rates for a system that you can't drink, I mean, I didn't see the upside of that. As much as I don't like paying high water rates, it's nice to be able to drink and bathe and have water you can use.
Yeah. Because it wouldn't have been just the $25 million. It would have been all the maintenance costs to go with that.
Right. And
correct?
then having the employees to take care of the system, and we would have to hire all new employees to operate this new facility that we were going to build. So we looked at the cost, and there was a lot of discussion about, well, maybe we should do it because the town's going to continue to grow, and we can spread out those costs over all these new people that were going to be coming into town, and that was enticing. But now looking back, all those new people never came. The town, we didn't grow because of the recession. And so that $25 million would have been being paid for by all the current residents. So if they thought their bill went high with Aqua, they wouldn't have had 3 or 4 times that with what we would have had to charge them for the new system. But we didn't know that at the time.
Yeah, because when did the water system, when was that sold to
We
Aqua?
sold in 2007. If we would have built our system, it would have happened in 2007, 2008. And guess what happened in
Oh,
2009?
wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, we would have been stuck with a huge facility that we would have overbuilt for the oncoming, influx of people. And we would have been stuck with a very big debt that with a very small group of people to be able to divide it among. So looking, it was a good decision when we made it back in 2007 to sell. It's even a better decision later on after we saw what happened, but we didn't have that vision in front of us. We just thought it was the right thing to do at the time. We got, again, everybody was upset because the water rates went up, and rightfully so, they did. But they didn't see the bills that they would have got if we went, on a different route.
Yeah.
But again, that's what it was. So anyway, we took that route and fixed the water system, and there's been issues since then with some billing issues at first, but all in all, we've got great water, and we pay a good price for it, but we get a good service. And the water people who were working for the village at the time, they all got jobs at Aqua, and so nobody got laid off or anything there. Um, I contacted Don Green at the city of Kankakee. He was the mayor at the time, about our wastewater problem because our sewer system was at a maximum capacity, and they also had a pipe out of a Diversitech that was running to their system in Kankakee. So we made an agreement with the city of Kankakee to rent space from them. That if our system became maxed out at maximum capacity, we put in a pipe directly to them that they would take all the overflow. And so that took some time, and we got it done, got it happening. It was very economical to do. So we found a very economical alternative for our wastewater system. So now we had our water system fixed, and actually got some money for it. We had our wastewater system taken care of, and had an agreement with the city of Kankakee. And now we had to concentrate on our school system. I talked with Don Russert, who is the new school superintendent at town. We talked and asked, why do you think everybody's voting against it? And the general consensus is that everybody thought that the school was mismanaging their money, and it wasn't going in the proper places. So I asked Dawn if they would allow an outside company to come in and do an audit of the school district. And if they found errors or problems, that the school would then adjust to operate, more efficiently. If they didn't find errors and problems, then we could use that as a advertising tool to sell the residents that, hey, you might think that the school is operating inefficiently, but we hired an outside consultant to come in, and this is what they said. Well, she agreed to do it. She didn't have. It was going to cost about $80,000 to have it done. She didn't have the money to do that. I told her that I would get the money from developers because the developers, if they had bought all this land, they weren't going to be able to build any houses if we didn't have a school to put the kids in. So it was up to their advantage to be able to fund this operation. So I went to a couple developers, and they've came up with the money to fund the study for the school district. So, and it worked out well because Dawn was a brand new superintendent at the time. The things that had happened at the school previously, she wasn't responsible for. So it was perfect timing. So we hired a company out of Dallas, Texas that came in and did a 2 or 3 month audit of the Manteno School District. They came back with a glowing report that school district was operating very efficiently. As a matter of fact, they were probably one of the most efficient in the state of Illinois. That the money that they were getting, they were using, in a proper fashion. And there was, very, very minor things that they needed to do to become more efficient. So we actually asked to get another referendum put on the ballot, and we used that report as our advertising mechanism to convince the voters that we needed more room in the school. And we had, got together. I remember Reverend McCormick was on the committee, and there was a couple other gentlemen who were on the committee. We had a number of different forums where we talked to the public and told them, what we had found, and asked them to support it. And sure enough, when the vote came in, I think we won by like 75-25, and the school district then got the funding to be able to put the addition on the high school and put the addition on the middle school.
Yeah.
So, in a couple year period, we had come in, we had three major issues: water, sewer, and school, and we got them resolved. And so, I mean, but it didn't happen without the cooperation of the school district and the township and library and all the different taxing bodies. I mean, we work constantly with all those bodies all the time to try to be able to provide the best services in town we can. And that was really the beginning of it.
Yeah. It's a team effort between multiple organizations and government bodies,
Sure.
really. And then I suppose after you got those three things to the order that you felt they should be in, I guess that's when I don't know if the right word is like the beautification of the town. Is that kind of when that started
Yeah.
too?
Well, and
After that?
once we got those three things in line, we were thinking that the development was going to take place then, because we had all our ducks in a row, and we wanted, we were ready to, start building some houses again. Well, that's when the recession hit and things slowed down, and the building went down to zero. When we sold the water system to Aqua, we got $4.5 million for that system. And so we decided that to use some of that money to beautify our main street. We wanted to, hey, we're a small town in mid-America, but we wanted to have something to offer people. And when people got off the highway and came into Manteno, we wanted them to be able to see a town that they were surprised to see how nice it was and what it looked like. I don't know if you remember some of the, back in 2005, 2006, some of the parking lots on Main Street were gravel.
Yes, I remember
They were
that.
all owned by the Illinois Central Railroad.
Yeah.
So we ended up having to buy the parking lots from the railroad. We ended up having to blacktop some of them. We tore down a couple of buildings, the old gas station that used to be a Miller's gas station on Main Street.
Yes, that was the last thing it was a coffee shop,
It was a
right?
coffee shop.
Yeah.
It had been a Johnny's
Pizza.
Yeah, we tore that down, and Dan Rudin was a trustee at the time, and he had a plan to plant trees on Main Street to, green it up a little bit to make it not so hard surfaces. And so we started planting trees, and then every year we'd do a little bit more. We'd, put some lights on the trees, and then we'd put, some turf here and there, and to, put some concrete surfaces. And after a while, people started seeing the difference, and they, wow, this town looks pretty nice for a little town.
Yeah.
And so we kept that plan using some of the money that we had, that we had gotten for the water system, to beautify. And we sold the water system, which was an asset, but we wanted to put the money into another asset of the community, but it was an asset that people could see. And most people started to like what they were seeing.
I'm sure you hear this or get asked this yourself a lot too. I know people have made comment that has raised their taxes in Manteno, is all that extra stuff. Is that true?
Well, it is and it isn't. It's true because it's raised the value of their house. Houses in Manteno are worth more than they are in a lot of other places. And your taxes are based on the value of the assessed valuation of your house. So it's true that a house in Manteno might be worth $300,000, and that same exact house in another community might be worth 250 or 200,000. Same exact house. So it's the location. And so, you're paying a higher taxes, based on what that value of the house is. So if you look at it that way, yeah, I mean, you could have, you could have the same house out in the middle of a field somewhere with no services and no amenities, and probably get the taxes a little bit lower. But it depends on what you're looking for. Taxes are a culmination of a lot of different taxing bodies, from the school, from the village, from the county, from the library, from the fire department. If you don't want any services at all, you can get rid of all your taxes. But
Sure.
then,
And
don't go out on the road when it snows, or don't send your kids to school, or don't call 911, or don't, so again, it's one of those things that you get what you pay for.
yeah. No, I mean, that is a valid
Mhm.
point.
The one thing in Manteno now, though, I mean, the village taxes, for the homeowners, we've been rebating the taxes for the last couple of years because of the investments we've made and because of some of the things that we've sold. We're able to do that. So, you're not paying, if you're a homeowner that's lived in your house more than a year in Manteno and you fill out the form, you're not paying any village taxes at all. And we're going to try to continue to do that as long as we can.
I think some people may not even realize too that you play another crucial role in our county as the president of the Economic Alliance of Kankakee County as well.
Yeah.
And that's a role, has that been 10 years?
It's been about 8 years.
Okay.
I was just doing the mayor thing on a part-time basis, and I got a call back in 2016. A couple of gentlemen that were board members of the Economic Alliance. I had lunch with them and talked about Mike Van Mill had left a position, went to the Village of Bourbonnais, and they had some people that were looking at the position that they decided they weren't going to come to the area, and they asked me if I'd have any interest in, I really hadn't thought about it at the time, and I told them, yeah, I'd like to try it. I think they liked some of the things they had seen being done in Manteno, and they were, wondering if maybe we could try to do some of those same things within the county. So I've been with the Economic Alliance now since 2016, and again, there's been a lot of changes, a lot of things. It's been a very great education. It's been a good run. We've had a lot of things happen. Several places close, lot of places open, a lot of places expand. I mean, I just go through the list now and I see that Bungie closed, but CSL took over, and that's a good thing. Marisot out in Manteno used to be there, and they closed. And I remember the day I called Warren Owinga and talked to him about it, and he ended up buying that building, and now that's Urban Farmer. Sears Logistics is gone, but Lowe's is in that 1.5 million square feet, and the
Okay.
warehouse
That's
out.
who's in there. Okay.
There's story after story after story. I mean, there's a cold storage facility out at Diversitech in Manteno that closed. The Van Drunens bought that facility, and they're there. Tyson Food, or the Candy closed in Manteno. McKesson is there now. So all those buildings that could have potentially sat empty, the Economic Alliance was able to play a role in trying to make sure that all those places got filled, and all those places are now employing people. Those people are still be able to work in the Kankakee County. We work, all the time with, with a lot of different municipalities throughout the community, to trying to help them and doing what they can do in order to attract businesses and retain businesses. Attracting businesses is great, but keeping the ones you have is really important. Angela, who's in my office at the Alliance, and myself, we spend a lot of time going out to businesses and talking to them about the good things of doing business in the county and the difficulties of doing business. What can we do to help? Sometimes it's as easy as a traffic stop sign here or there, or a road that needs to get paved, or potholes need to get fixed. And other times, most the last couple of years, it's been all about workforce and being able to find employees and getting through the COVIDs, that they had, or that everybody had. So it's been a real whirlwind, but it's an interesting thing because there's always something going on. And you're really disappointed when you hear about a company that's closing. But then that's an opportunity to try to bring somebody else in that's going to maybe invest and hire more. Since I've been there, like I say, CSL has gone on a crazy expansions. Nucor. I mean, we were involved in that when Nucor, was chosen locally to invest 300 million dollars. To be able to get involved. The Alliance was heavily involved in that negotiation. We get involved in all kinds of different things, and it's fun to see, fun to watch. Easy to complain that, well, this company left or that company left, but sometimes a company that left gave an opportunity for a new company to come that might be even bigger and better.
And I feel like that leads up to Gotion
Sure.
taking over what was the Kmart distribution center
Yeah,
in
that's
Manteno.
a very controversial thing. But we've been in my position at the Economic Alliance. We are always out looking for new companies to potentially come in. Uh, we were notified back in December of last year that there was a company, we didn't know who, looking somewhere in the United States to do a potential battery facility. And the Kmart building was submitted. And we submit buildings all the time. I mean, we've submitted the Kmart building 35 times probably for things that never ever get a call back.
Yeah, because it's been empty for how long now?
Well, it wasn't really empty, but it was being underutilized. But Kmart has been gone for the last 4 or 5 years. But we do that all the time. We're submitting buildings or facilities that we know are going to be coming empty or that are potentially empty that are available. And 99 times out of 100, we don't even get a call that anybody's interested. But in this time, we did get a call. But we submitted things back in December of last year, and we never heard anything more until June, that a company, again, not knowing who they were, that they might have interest in. And then things started picking up, and we started, talking back a little bit, back and forth. But we weren't sure that they were coming or that they were actually going to choose Manteno until about 3-4 days before the announcement was made, because there was still several other locations that were under consideration.
So
Uh,
are you negotiating with, is it like a developer that you're talking
well,
with when you do
most
these?
of the time we're dealing with either the state of Illinois through through the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, and they're dealing with a site selector or a developer. Very it's not till the very end of that you even find out what the name of the company is or who you're talking to. It's a project name. It's so
Yeah. And do
uh,
they, I'm sure there's reasons they keep that kind of
Well, it's
under
because
wraps.
the companies are looking at several different places throughout the United States, and they don't want other towns or other communities knowing that they're looking in 5 or 6 or 10 different places. I mean, I'm working with companies right now. I don't have any idea who they are, but we're working through site selectors that are looking for a different location. What'll happen is we'll get a notification that from the state of Illinois or from the Intersect Illinois or from a site selector that, hey, I've got a company that's looking for 150 acres. It's got to be close to an interstate, within an hour of an international airport. It's got to have X number of gallons per day capacity of water and sewer. It's got to have this much electricity capacity. It's got to have this much natural gas capacity. And it's got to have a workforce that can supply X number of people. And we look and see what sites we have that might meet that criteria. We don't select the towns or anything. We just look at the sites, and the sites pretty much speak for themselves. If we have a site that qualifies for in the parameters that are submitted, we'll submit it. And we might get a call back, or we might not ever hear anything again ever.
Yeah.
And that's what happened in this case. Is that they were looking for a building that a 1.5 million square foot building, and we submitted it just like we do all the time. And this time it happened to turn into something.
Were there any other sites in Kankakee County besides the former Kmart distribution center in Manteno that you submitted to Goshen? And of course, obviously you didn't know it
Yeah,
was
we didn't
Goshen
know
at
it
the
was Goshen,
time.
but no, there's no other sites that meet that criteria. There's only a couple buildings in the county that are that big, and that's the only one that was empty. Now, there were a number of sites in northern Illinois that they looked at, that were under consideration. I know the Caterpillar facility up in Joliet was, they toured that and was under consideration. There's a couple sites in Aurora and Montgomery, Illinois that they had looked at. But that was the only site in our area because it was the only one that met the criteria.
Did you ever find out like what made them pull the trigger?
Well, it came down to uh, Manteno or Joliet. And what I was told was the deciding factor was that the Joliet facility was not quite as large. It was landlocked. It had the river on one side and had buildings located on both other sides, and it was a lot older. Now it did have some pluses. They did have more power ability there. That because Caterpillar had needed a lot more power. The Kmart building was a distribution center. It didn't have the power. And so they were looking very very heavily in Joliet, and but they ended up choosing Manteno because of the size of the building, the condition of the building, the wide open spaces that were around the building. And as far as price and that type of thing, I wasn't involved in any of that, so I don't have any idea whether that had anything to do with it or not. But I mean, I think that is the proximity and the workforce is pretty much similar. I mean, whether the building was in Joliet or whether it's here, people are be able to to travel to work there from any spot. I mean, this is one of those things where there's going to be enough employees that people are going to be the workforce is going to be coming from a 45-minute radius.
Yeah.
It's not all coming from 10 minutes around the facility.
I know some of the, bringing up some of the concerns or things that have been brought to light from Manteno residents or even outside of that, is that people are saying that we were kept in the dark on this situation.
Mhm.
But judging by what you were just saying, I mean, you didn't even know. You don't know that information on who the company is and all that stuff. So it's not necessarily that you were keeping anyone
Well, no, it
in the
wasn't.
dark,
I
right?
learned the name of the company back in the end of June, um, and but still, even once we learned who they were, um, it wasn't something to announce because I mean, it's not like there was no decision made until September, so we're not we're not going to go announce something that, well, hey, somebody's looking here, but uh, we don't know whether they're coming or not because, again, like I'm working with companies right now that I don't, they'll never get announced because it'll never happen. So we never know whether it's going to happen or not until it does. So we knew who we were dealing with, but we also knew that they were looking at other places too. And more times than not, it doesn't ever happen. So why get everybody worked up and alarmed for something that's not going to happen?
Yes.
And so, we say we met with the company and we met with them a couple different times about workforce and about power consumption and about availability of workforce and that type of thing. Um, and they had a issue obviously with some taxes, and we came up with a formula that we thought would be good for the area and would increase the taxes in it, but it would also be able to give the company some long-term viability as far as what they knew that the taxes would never exceed a certain amount. And so we proposed that to them because bottom line, the first time we met with them, they wanted all the taxes eliminated totally, and we told them that was just a non-starter. That's not going to happen.
And yeah, that's why, since we're talking about get into that, there is that misconception that they're not paying any
No,
taxes, but they are,
Oh, yeah.
correct? And so how does that work?
Well, the taxes on that building right now are about $975,000 a year just on that one building. And the taxes, I mean, what we agreed with the company is that that the taxes, are going to go up when they make investments. But what the company was afraid of that is, as they invest hundreds of millions of dollars in the facility, that the taxes would just continue to go up and go up and go up and go up, and that every time they invested money, the tax, they'd be raising their own taxes. And it's somewhat true. But on the other hand, if they go somewhere else, the taxes they're never going to go up at all. The matter of fact, it's probably going to go down because there'll be an empty building sitting there and it'll deteriorate. So we came up with a formula where the taxes would double, would actually go up 105%. And once they invested enough money in their taxes got figured just like they do everybody else, and once that tax bill exceeded the $2 million mark, then we would cap it. And so the company's benefit was that if they invested a lot of money into that and the taxes, they never get to 2 million, there's no benefit for them at all. But if they get to 2 million and they exceed it, what their benefit is anything above 2 million, they don't have to pay. But they still got to pay 2 million, which is 105% of what the building is now. It'd be kind of like me coming to you and saying, "Hey, Jake, I'm gonna raise your taxes on your house 105% right now, but then you'll stay the same for 30 years." Well, if you did the math, I don't know that you'd take that deal. But but again, you're not going to be investing a lot of money, the amount of money. And so like I said, what they didn't want to do is invest, $100 million, and all of a sudden their taxes go up to whatever that would equate to. Um, and I didn't want to give anything away either, but at the same token, it's taken us 30 years. That building's been in existence for 30 years to get up to the tax level that we're currently at.
Yeah,
And
because
so
do you know what it started at?
it started as farmland when
Well,
it
that's
used to,
right.
it was a couple $100,
Yeah,
and so it took 30 years to get to where we are now.
almost $1 million.
And so now we can almost, we'll potentially double or 105% of what it is, and that might happen in a year or two. We might get there that fast, but then we're locked in. And the other thing is that we know that that they're going to potentially invest a lot of money. They're going to hire a lot of people. There was a lot of other things that we looked at as benefits. We didn't want to hamstring any of our taxing bodies. So I went to all the taxing bodies. I called a meeting of all the leaders of the taxing bodies and explained to them that, hey, we have this company that's looking. We don't know if they're coming or not, but this is the proposal we made to them. And they have come back to us and said, they'd be interested in this proposal. Could we go and ask all the taxing bodies to approve this proposal? Doesn't mean they're still coming. I mean, if we approve it, there's no guarantee there's going to come. But if we don't approve it, we know they're not going to come. So if you think it's a good deal and you want to approve it, that's great. If you don't think it's a good deal and you don't approve it, it's got to be all or none. And so all the taxing bodies said that they thought it was something they could live with.
And what are all the taxing bodies?
Well, the taxing bodies are the Manteno School District is the biggest one. They're about 65% of the tax bill. Then the county, Kankakee County is the next one. The Village of Manteno is the next one. The Manteno Fire Department is the next one. Manteno Township, Manteno Assessor, Kankakee Community College, Manteno Library, Manteno Drainage District. I believe there's 10 of them.
Okay.
And every one of those taxing bodies had to have a meeting, and they had to vote on this, proposal that we had. And they all had their meetings in the month of October or of August, and they all voted on it and approved it. And then that's when I called the company and said, "Okay, we've got everybody to agree to it. What's going to happen?" And it was about a week or so after I made that call that I got the call back that, I think we're going to come to Manteno. So, and that was like the first week of September. And that's really when we knew that they were going to choose us. Previous to that, we were in the running,
but we didn't
know whether it was really going to happen or not. I mean, and again, you don't announce that kind of stuff because say, hey, we're in the running, but might not be nothing to announce. So I mean, why get everybody informed of something that might not ever happen?
To address the the CCP, the Communist Party of China, there is a process that international companies have to go through in order to do business in the United States, correct? I mean, there is like Gotion had to be screened before they could even be approved to select a
Right,
site
right.
here.
Yeah, Goshen has been in the United States since 2014. They've got offices in Fremont, California, and they have another facility in Independence, Ohio. They have gone through a screening process with the State Department, and we have never been given any indication that there is anything that would prevent them from doing business in the United States or the state of Illinois. If that if that wasn't the case, obviously the state of Illinois wouldn't have brought them to us, and we wouldn't be doing business with a company that wasn't allowed to do business in the United States. So, I mean, that's way beyond the capabilities of the Village of Manteno investigation, but that's what we're being, told.
That's what you're being told from the authorities that
Well,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, that they say they were cleared to do business, and they have been doing business in the United States for the last several years.
And then hazard. There's the question of it bringing about hazard and pollution and things like that.
Mhm.
What can you speak on about that?
Well, there's a lot of fear of the unknown, and we hear a lot of talk about the fire that happened over in Morris. And that's kind of like you comparing apples and oranges. The fire in Morris, it did happen, and it was not good. And it was batteries that were being stored, but the fire department over there didn't even have any clue that the batteries were even in there. So when they went there to combat the fire, they had no idea what they were extinguishing. Uh, that's obviously not going to be the case here. I mean, obviously, uh, we have not worked the last 20 years in Manteno building the town up to the community that it is today to have some company come in and just blatantly destroy it. That's crazy. We wouldn't do that. We wouldn't, that wouldn't be good for anybody. The hazards that we've seen here, they're being mitigated. I mean, there's been all kinds of talk about the wastewater, that it's going to contaminate all the streams and the water and everything around it. Well, that's just absolutely not true. I mean, they have anything that happens there that is more toxic than is allowed in the wastewater system. It has to be treated there by a pretreatment facility, similar to the way it's done at CSL. They have a pretreatment facility, Valspar, Dow Chemical, all the different companies here that have any type of toxic release. They have to take care of that before it gets into the system, and that's the same thing that's going to happen there. So the wastewater that comes out of that facility into the system, we're told, is not going to be any more toxic than what comes out of your house. Um, the water is all going to be coming from the Kankakee River. It's coming from aqua facilities that are already in place. They have more than enough capability to be able to service what they need there without having to, put in any new pipelines at all. So their water supply and the wastewater, disposal is a non-issue. We're hearing stories that, well, it's going to dry up all the wells because of all the water they're going to use. Well, that's just not the case, because it's coming. There's a pipe coming up Route 45. There's a pipe coming up Route 50 that bring 4 million gallons a day each, and we use about 1 million gallons in Manteno. So there's plenty of water there with no investment on anybody's part. Same thing with the wastewater. That's problem is taken care of. Any type of fire spills or whatever, that water has to be contained, and that water has to be treated, in a manner that is conducive with the IEPA and the EPA regulations. So they're going to be very heavily scrutinized. And while I can see it could be concerns, it's something that's being addressed, and to compare it with fires that have happened in other places. I mean, there's been catastrophic fires that have happened in houses too, but it doesn't mean you stop living in them. And the same thing here. I mean, the fire in Morris was unfortunate, and it was close by, and it's fresh in people's mind, but it was, totally different scenario than what we're going to be dealing with here.
I imagine there's going to be state approvals that have to happen as they're making the whatever modifications out there at
Right.
that
Yeah.
site.
They've hired a national recognized fire suppression company to come in and to make their recommendations and they'll be inspected regularly. So I mean they're going to be under more scrutiny than than most, obviously, and rightfully so. They should be. The fire chief is confident that they can handle any of the issues that come up. We've met with him and talked with him and working with him to make sure that they have the tools to do what they need to do. There's some training that's going to have to be involved, absolutely, and some training, not just for the Manteno Fire Department, but for other departments that may be called to there, just like they are, do mutual aid for everything else too. So there's some things that have to be addressed and will be addressed. Uh, but the Armageddon that everybody is predicting, again, I wouldn't be for something that I thought would be detrimental.
Is there anything else you want to speak on about Goshen? Any other main concerns that you want to address? I know those are the ones that I've heard.
Yeah. Well, I
Um,
mean, the rumors too about they're gonna bring all the people from China. I talked to the president of the company about that because I heard that and they are going to have some people here from China that are going to be do some of the installation and the training. The optimum number of people that they have they hope to have here from China is 50. And most of those people are going to be training and installation of equipment. They said that to bring all the people from China over here to work it, they might as well make the batteries in China. I mean, it's not financially a smart move to do that because
yeah.
it's just that they looking to employ people from here. They're looking to expand their raw material base in the United States. So, the products will be able to be made somewhere in the United States and shipped to Manteno and, have the final assembly there. I mean, so far, I understand people's fears, and I think the fears are sometimes stoked by people that might have other agendas. And a lot of people moved to Manteno because they were getting away from something and the problems that might have happened in their other areas, and they don't want to see issues around in Manteno, and neither do I. It's been my home all my life. It's going to continue to be my home all my life. My grandkids are there. I don't want nothing but good things to happen there. And again, I wouldn't be promoting it or pushing for it if I didn't think it was a good thing. And I think it's good for not only a community, I think it's good for the whole region, the whole county, the whole, the whole suburban land.
Yeah. I mean, 2,600 jobs. That's a lot.
Sure. I mean, it's the biggest project in the state of Illinois. It's a big deal. I mean, there was communities throughout the country competing for this, and we won it. And now we're having to, uh, justify getting it. I guess I don't know.
Did you foresee the backlash?
Well, I sometimes, I didn't foresee the national backlash. I mean, and I think that's what's fueling some of the fire here is that some of the local people are opposed to it, and sometimes there's some people that are going to be opposed to anything. So I wasn't surprised there, but it's turned into a political issue, and I didn't really foresee that, and to me, it's more of it's a progress issue. I mean, we have a good community that has the opportunity to become better. It was funny. I was reading an article in the paper a week or so ago that Jack Clacy had about the Manteno State Hospital in the 1930s. I'll bet you there was all kinds of controversy about that too.
I would think so.
And it turned into be the economic engine for the whole area for decades. When this hospital closed, that was devastating, for the area. And people still talk about Roper's closing and A.O. Smith's closing, and how devastating it is. Well, now we're coming back financially, um, and it seems like whatever happens, there's a fight. Whether it's something that it eventually turns out to be positive, or whether it's something that's bad. There's constantly controversy on all sides.
Yeah. How do you deal with that?
I I play with my grandkids.
Yeah, that's your release.
Well, I can't. It bothers you because you want everyone to see things the way you do, but you also realize that that's just not reality, and that everyone has. There's a lot of different agendas out there, and uh, you do what you think is right, and let the chips fall where they fall.
What do you want your legacy to be in Manteno, even in the county at this point, just because with your role in the Economic Alliance, you've really kind of gone beyond Manteno at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I just I want we did what we thought was right. I'm sure there's good things that'll come out of things. Some things there might be something that somebody might look and say it wasn't good, that it was bad. But we always did what we thought was the correct thing, and leave it at that. But what I'm trying to do in Manteno is prepare the town and the community for the next several decades. And I think that if you leave something better than what you found it, you did okay.
Yeah, that's a good way to put that.
Yeah.
Well, Mayor Nugent, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
I truly, truly appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Is there anything else that you want to
No, I
mention
think
before we
I think
close
I've
out?
rambled on enough. Yeah.
There's a lot there. There's so much to unpack, but I want to say that I'm proud to say that I'm from Manteno, and I feel like you've done some amazing things for the community. A lot of amazing things, and I just want to say thank you for doing
Well,
that.
thank you very much. I
You know,
appreciate that.
yeah.
Those are things that make it all worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like you've really may helped continue continue to take the torch of giving Manteno the reputation that it's always had, and that's a kind, caring, mid-American community that is always there for its people.
Thank you very much.